attendee. POSTINGIONE.
All right, seeing that we have a quorum, are we okay, GD?
Mhm.
So we have a quorum. I call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock on August 7th, 2023. And first, I will do the roll call. I am the chair, Luke Marusiak. I am present. Vice Chair Andre Tessman,
Present.
Commissioner Chris Aliff,
Present.
Commissioner Michael Crone,
Present.
Commissioner Daryl Lambert, Commissioner Steve Smith. I understand we have a new commissioner, Ashley Killip.
It's Kilcup.
Kilcup. I'm sorry, one more time. Kilcup.
Cup.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, did we receive, let me just make a note here. Did we receive any communication that Commissioner Lambert or Commissioner Smith would be unavailable?
This is Emily Artici, Community Development Director. No, we did not.
Okay, I'll give them a few more minutes and later on in the meeting, we'll decide if we want to excuse them or not. Okay, welcome Commissioner Kilcup. I wondered if before we get started, you could give a brief introduction.
Sure. Not sure how much you want to know, but I am a former architect that turned commercial broker and then went in-house for commercial landlord regional. And in doing so, worked in primary, secondary, and tertiary markets, so repositioning large assets. We've lived in Snoqualmie Ridge for the last 2 years, and we absolutely love it. And when I saw there was a vacant seat, I thought, even though I've not really done anything like this before, I'd throw my hat in and see if I could be of assistance.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Commissioner Kilcup. Welcome. I think you've come at a good time. There's a lot going on in the plan.
I heard, yeah.
All right, at this point, I move that we approve the August 7th, 2023 Planning Commission agenda as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. And that leads us into, first, let me ask, are there any public comments for any items not on the agenda? Okay, then that leads us into the public hearing on ADU code amendments.
Oh.
Yes,
Councilman, Chair, we do have Counselor or Commissioner Smith available.
oh, good, good. Commissioner Smith?
He's probably being promoted. There he is.
There we are. Commissioner Smith? See your name there.
There we go. How about that?
Good, very good.
Oh, my goodness.
Welcome, welcome.
It worked. Well, there we are.
Okay, we have a good representation here. And Commissioner Smith, we have a new commissioner, Commissioner Ashley Kilcup, also.
Oh. Welcome aboard.
Hello, thank you.
So at this point, we move into the public hearing of the ADU code amendments. And there is a memorandum that basically shows that the accessory dwelling units or ADUs are small housing units attached to or separate from an accessory to a single family home, commonly used as affordable or no cost housing for renters or relatives of a property's primary dwelling unit. And the city's approved housing strategy identified ADUs as promising ways of providing basic affordable accommodations for households that do not need much space while potentially providing a source of rental income for homeowners. And they could also serve as an accessible option for renters below 120% area median income. We discussed this at a number of previous commission meetings. And although we're required to update its ADU regulations per the state's HB 1337 within 6 months after our comprehensive plan. We thought it wise to update our SMC now. And this is a public hearing for the Planning Commission to hear any public comments on the proposed SMC amendments, the bulk of which are under SMC 17.55.070. So staff, any other background required, or is that sufficient?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and commission members. Jonathan Kessler, Senior Planner with the City of Snoqualmie. We did receive some public comments, and I have copies I can provide to you right now. I'll just pass out. One is from Amanda Rich, was received today, and the other came from a Dick Shield, who my reply to him, you'll find attached as well, because that his email was received on July 31st, actually before the public hearing notice appeared in the paper the day before. So you'll find his primary email on page 2 and 3, and then my response on page 1. You did a good summary, Mr. Chairman, of what's before us today. I'm happy to add anything else that may be needed. You should have all the paperwork in your packet, and that would include the memorandum as well as the strikeouts and underlines of the particular parts of the Snoqualmie Municipal Code that would be affected by the proposed changes. Happy to answer any questions. You also have a crosswalk in your packet, which kind of shows on a slightly different format, the different sections that would be affected. These correlate to the other handout that shows the strikeouts and the underlines, because it impacts those sections of the code.
Okay.
As you noted, it's wasn't required to be done right away. We did have a few months, but we thought we'd go ahead and get it scheduled and get it going. I will mention that, as you said, we discussed it twice in this meeting previously. This is our public hearing this evening. The results of this public hearing and any comments or recommendations would go forward tentatively to the City Council meeting of September 11th, 2023. It would be heard by the Community Development Committee on August 21st.
Okay. At this point, I would like to open the public hearing portion of our meeting. And again, we have one public hearing this evening, which is ADU accessory dwelling units, the code amendments. I want to open the public hearing. This proceeding, the community is invited to provide comments regarding the proposal to adopt the ADU code amendments. The following information will pertain to the public hearing. Those wishing to speak, if you've signed up, I will go ahead and call you. If not, we'll look on the Zoom call and recognize you at that point. For the online attendees, please raise your hand if you're wishing to provide public comments. Your name will be added to the in-person sign-up sheet. I will, and when you're called, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Direct your comments to the commission as a whole and not to individual members. Please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the commission or staff or to engage in debate. The commission will quietly and respectfully listen to your comments. You have 3 minutes to speak and we have 30 seconds left. I will advise you to finish up your comments. We'll now open this hearing to members of the public who wish to speak. Is there anyone with their hand up on the attendee list for the Zoom? Nobody's their hand up? I see 2 attendees, no, and I see no one present here. Okay, we've received input via email and we've given opportunity for anyone who wished to speak, had the opportunity to speak. So now I declare the Planning Commission's public hearing on the ADU Code of Amendments closed. At this point, I'd like to discuss are there any inputs that substantially change the codes in this input that we received, Jonathan?
There's some questions, Mr. Chairman, about the, excuse me, about the downtown area, which would be impacted by this. Essentially, I think it's important to stress that of the several pieces of legislation that were passed, this is only one that's affecting Snoqualmie, a city of Snoqualmie size directly in regard to ADUs, which would permit 2 accessory dwelling units per lot as opposed to the current 1. The concern expressed by Ms. Rich, whose email was submitted today, did indicate possible issues with traffic and with congestion and with parking, primarily parking, noting the nature of the size of the lots in downtown, that many of them are smaller. I will stress that the language of the ADU changes essentially is saying that you cannot have higher requirements for ADUs than for regular primary dwelling units. So the main thrust here is to make it easier to place a second unit on, on a property, but it would still need to meet the requirements that a primary dwelling unit would have to meet. So if there's not room on the lot, then you wouldn't be able to place one on there. And I think that it's pretty clear in the legislation and as outlined in the packet. And I think our Ms. Rich was concerned about that, and that's what she was expressing. But the requirements would not be different than for a primary dwelling unit. And we can look at, excuse me, each segment if you want to go over the crosswalk, if you have any specific questions on those sections.
So let me comment. Let me turn it over to the Planning Commission. Just do a quick poll online. Commissioner Smith, any comments for discussion?
Not just yet, no.
Okay. Commissioner Cook, I don't know if you had a chance to look at this. Any comments?
I have not reviewed it yet.
Okay. Commissioner Aliff?
Just the one clerical issue that I had mentioned in the previous meeting, in section E under the E definitions, the word definition for family still appears. It should probably be under F, but that's it. That's the only change that I recall from between the 2 meetings.
Okay.
Noted. I thought that had been changed on the new one, but we'll correct that.
Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Tessman?
Yeah, so maybe this is just to make sure my understanding is accurate in accordance with the newly passed state law. So I'm looking at page 9 and going to the parking question. So I'm really on line, well, I think the clearest one is 393, paragraph E. That the parcel is within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop or less than 6,000 square feet in size, and off-street parking for the ADU is not required. So that's a proposed change to the municipal code, right? Because we're striking out a previous requirement for one off-street parking space that was an F. Is that going above and beyond the state law, or is that simply to put us in compliance with the state law?
Oh, it's definitely put us in compliance with the state law. Yeah, no way. Given the size of lots in the city, we really would not be able to go above and beyond. There's not a lot of flexibility there on doing, additional allowances for spaces like that.
So I guess just to make sure I'm clear then, so you're saying state law doesn't even give us the flexibility to require one off-street parking spot when the lot size is less than 6,000 square feet?
That's my, yes, so that's my reading of it. What section are we?
That's page 9, specifically lines, 390 to 394.
Oh, okay.
It covers greater than 6,000 square feet nicely as well. That's when it does say that, says no more than 2 off-street parking spaces shall be required.
That's correct. Yeah, that's would be coming in compliance with state law.
Okay. You probably don't know on the top of your head. Do you know like the average lot size is here in downtown?
Well, interestingly, Ms. Rich in her email was stating that it was around 4,000 square feet, but I can't verify that without, we could do a check. I don't think would be too much.
The average lot
Trouble.
size is 4,000 square feet?
Yeah, that's really small.
Here in
So
downtown?
I'm thinking because if you go north of downtown, there's some fairly larger lots. And they're zoned for that north, immediately north of downtown. So
So if we assume that Mrs. Rich's email is true,
Mhm.
then there's actually no changes
Right.
that apply to Mrs. Rich's email. Because the
Right,
existing
because-
regulation is still less than 6,000 feet and we haven't touched that.
right, that's correct.
So, okay.
Vice Chair Tessman, any?
No, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
I think that's what you're.
Yeah,
getting to,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, there's
nailed
really
it.
no relevant change that we're approving tonight.
Yeah.
I think just for clarification, what's behind that is, when you have a dense area
Yeah.
to provide, as much density as possible. And I think that's the reasoning behind it. I know some of the legislation applies to larger cities, that's a recurring theme as well. So.
Commissioner Crone?
No comment. I was looking at section E as well, so.
Okay. And remind me, how does the emailed input get to be part of the record?
Those people that submitted, in time, it would just go into the record that would go into the packet that would go to the city commission.
Okay. So, and to clarify, we're not approving, the best we could do is make a recommendation that moves to the CD before it goes to the council. So we would be providing a recommendation. So,
Yes, sir.
okay. At this point, do we think we have enough information with the red lines and with the last few meetings where we've covered this, with thanks to the staff for its yeoman's effort on educating us, to provide a recommendation to the council, and I think it's CD at this time. Yes.
I just wanted, Chair Emily Arteche, Community Development Director, I just wanted to refer back to the crosswalk on page, let's see, 2 out of 3, when it talked about off-street parking. We had provided a staff response regarding the new regulation. A city may not require an off-street parking space when within 1/2 mile walking distance of a major transit stop on lots smaller than 6,000 square feet and may not be required more than 2 off-street parking spaces per units on lots greater than 6,000 square feet. So I think hopefully that provides you some information about required parking. And I don't, Jonathan, do we have any areas located in the city within a half mile walking distance of a major transit stop?
Well, I mean, the transit runs through, right through downtown, so I believe it would be anything within that parameter.
But major transit stop is a definition in
Yeah.
RCW.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on line 160.
Yeah, a stop on a high capacity system funded, expanded commuter rail stops, or a fixed guideway systems.
But so I'm just saying that I think the commission has some prerogative if they want to address that parking issue.
Well, and also, I mean, I don't have 81.104 in front of me, but per this definition, stops for a bus or other transport partners.
Yes, it wouldn't exceed the rate. Stops for a bus or other transit mode providing actual fixed route service intervals of at least 15 minutes for at least 5 hours. And it's every hour. So
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it
208 probably doesn't.
would be a minor transit stop.
Mhm.
So a couple of points. One, again, today, there is no approval. If anything, that'd be a recommendation that we could do. Two, we certainly can request that we take the input and include this. I mean, we have the ability to go ahead and do that. And then I think is there another public hearing with the CD on the same issue, PDUs?
No, it's just one public
Okay,
hearing,
okay.
but the commission can choose to, make the recommendations they think is necessary. We
Okay,
could-
okay.
You could choose to come back at your next meeting and. look
Yeah, I
at
was gonna
this
say,
again.
so there's no demand that we go ahead and forward this today. However, the fact that I think all of us live on the ridge, and this is a downtown issue, I kind of wish our downtown guy was here, and that the input came from a downtown person. I'm kind of inclined to think we ought to take this pretty seriously because they don't have a lot of lot sizes down there, and that's the only place this applies to. So what are our options in making the requirement for basically how E was originally written in that one line? Can you go down that on page 9 again?
So looking at the crosswalk, it says 1 off-street parking space in addition to that which is required for the underlying
Yeah, I
zone.
mean, what was wrong with F? That we couldn't retain that?
Well, excuse me, it defaults to, commissioners defaults to the lot size since it's not a major transit stop. It is, or if it's less than 6,000 square feet in size.
It seems like you could add some additional language there around those lot size parameters. And we don't currently have a major transit stop, so you could.
Yeah, let me try to clarify. It seems like we would like the folks who put an ADU in to make accommodations for parking. It sounds like that's what we're
Yes.
suggesting. So from the staff perspective, how do we do that? I think that's a better way to go. How would we tweak the SMC code amendments to accommodate that? Is everybody agreeing with that?
Spot on.
Well, we would want to make sure it's not conflicting with the state law on that. Obviously, that first part would not apply, so it would be focused on the city may not require on lots smaller than 6,000 square feet, more than, let's see. on lots smaller than 6,000 square feet. More than 2 off-street parking spaces per unit. Looks like there's a small typo there.
I mean, so I think the shared logic here is that parking would be not required only in cases when the proposed ADU site is within a half mile of a major transit stop. That major transit stop is nowhere to be found in downtown Snoqualmie.
Right.
So because of that requirement, our logic is, and maybe it's wrong, is we don't have a prohibition regardless of the lot size on requiring off-street parking.
So we'd like to require for somebody who has an ADU to also include one parking spot with it.
Yeah, we
I mean,
could,
that's, and we'd like you to help us, obviously, within state law guidelines and whatnot, to include that in the code amendments.
yeah, no,
I think we
staff
need to
could-
verify that
Yeah, staff
it's not.
could work on that and come
conflicting.
back to you.
Yeah, so
what-
I think the best step would be, let us verify that wouldn't conflict with the new law.
Yeah.
And then just bring it back on the next
Yeah.
meeting.
And does that make sense? Is it clear to everybody? We're
Yeah.
good?
Mhm.
And then,
Absolutely.
Chair, can I make one recommendation that maybe we just continue the public hearing until the next
Yes,
planning commission meeting?
so we won't have to re-advertise.
Yeah,
If it's a continuation, then it would
Okay,
not require.
okay. How do we do that?
just,
Make the comment? Okay. So just a comment, the public hearing on the ADU code amendments has been reopened. It will remain open at least through the next planning commission, such that email input can be received by the staff. And we will also receive in-person or online comments during the next planning commission, because we are going to amend the code amendments as proposed.
If you could just state that date also. So through the date of Monday, the
21st.
21st of August.
Through the date of August 21st, Planning Commission, August 21st, 2023.
Okay. Staff
Do
will
I
do
need
it.
to,
Sure.
set to a vote?
Chair,
Yes.
sorry, if I may, one other thing that maybe is worth looking at as I was doing some digging into this here while going through the presentation is there is, in looking at some of the guidance that Department of Commerce put out as it relates to parking and looking at HB 1337 public law, there's language in there about being able to submit a study done by a transportation or land use consultant that is reviewed and approved to be reviewed and potentially approved by the department. That would say that showing that the parking consistent with the law would be significantly less safe for pedestrians, bicyclists, or people in vehicles. So it looks like there's a method where you can submit a study, of course, it's at the city's expense, but submit that for consideration. I don't know, it's unclear to me exactly how that works or what the guidelines are, but it might be something worth looking into.
Well, so I hear you. I mean, the cool thing about this ADU was it was a creative way that the state and the county said, hey, let's provide the ability to have some additional potentially low cost rental. And let's make it such that cities can't forbid that. We said, let's get ahead of the game. Let's go ahead and initiate that right away. So I think we're on the right path to be moving reasonably quickly with judicious, but nonetheless reasonably quickly. And so I'm not sure doing a traffic study, because last time I was one of those, it was a multi-year thing, moves this thing along. I think the simple request is, what code can we put in to require that somebody who puts an ADU downtown also provides a space for parking, for one parking spot for that ADU.
Yeah.
And I think if we figure out how to do that, we can maybe get some headway on actually getting a couple of ADUs in the next couple of years. You agree, Commissioner Smith?
I agree, but just from what I'm reading, I'm not sure we have, I think, and that's what I'm hearing from staff as well, is that I don't know that we have the flexibility to set that requirement without submitting a study or something that says otherwise, which has to be, of course, completed by the end of 2023. As you might imagine, that seems next to impossible for anybody to do, to hire a consultant, have the study done and submitted before, in 5 months. That's unrealistic.
Chair,
Yes.
if we could, staff could reconvene and discuss whether or not that study is needed to meet
Okay.
some additional parking requirements for ADUs.
Okay.
That would be appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we've taken the input. This was a good hearing.
Conversation.
And we'll keep the public hearing open through email and then ultimately on August 21st for in-person and online comments as well. And we'll look at what the staff has come up with at that time.
Yes, we'll bring our answers back then. We appreciate the public hearing continuing to next meeting.
And just one comment on that input. Can we verify what the average lot size is downtown? Because 4,000 square feet seems, man, it's like 20 by 200. That seems ridiculously
Yeah.
small.
Seems,
And
it
maybe
seems
I'm-
quite small.
Visualizing something, that seems really small.
We'll be glad to check on that too, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, nothing exciting there.
Thank you.
Less than that.
Anything else on the ADU code amendments agenda item? Okay, we'll pick this up next meeting. And now it's the council liaison report. Councilmember Johnson.
Greetings, Commission. It's great to see so many of you here. I can actually turn and stuff. Yeah, when I went to see the Senate, I was in Washington, D.C. I was bitterly disappointed to see that a lot of the times they turn and look like they're talking to their fellow senators. It's all just a show for the cameras. And I feel like I've been doing that for the last few months, and you guys are, so I can actually turn and look at people. So I've got two things. One is with regard to staffing, which I'm sure that many of you are aware of, that we've had unfortunately, some senior staff who have left us. We have the fire chief, Mark Carrera, who left, and also the police chief, Perry Phipps, who left us quite suddenly. And all I can really say is that the administration had put forward some folks to work as our interim folks to fill those positions while they are doing the search for someone to more permanently fill those positions. And look forward to seeing what the administration brings us at some point. Council isn't really involved in that process. It's an administrative process. So I don't know how it's going, in case you were wondering.
Okay.
And then let's see. Oh, the other big thing is that the Model Railroad Museum that I told you about a number of times has been slowly moving forward. Staff brought forward a proposed what do you call it, rental agreement and a proposed development agreement that council is currently reviewing. I believe within the next couple of council meetings, we will make a decision one way or the other on that. And the bottom line idea is that the facility that's currently being proposed would be about 20,000 square feet. And it would be on the space that many of us commonly refer to as the tree lot. It's not really called that. I don't really know what we call the lot officially, but anyway, everyone knows it as the tree lot, where I believe it's the Scouts that sell trees every holiday season. Let's see, it's going to have, as proposed, it would have parking underneath the building as well as some uncovered parking out in a more normal lot. It would have an event space on the second floor, as well as a mezzanine around the main display area. And as you enter, there'd be, of course, a ticketing booth and some other facilities there. And then most of the ground floor would be the main attraction, which would be the display of the railway itself. And that is going to be essentially a pathway around the outside where you're kind of looking in toward an island that has all of the main features of the trains and the various landscapes and that sort of thing. It has the ability to be expanded in the future if they decide to build more pieces and add them to the layout. But it certainly is a pretty neat thing. I've gotten to see the museum itself. It's currently in the basement of Mr. Peter Hambling, who lives in Medina. It is pretty impressive, but you can't see a lot of it because the ceiling's kind of low in the basement and you kind of have to get up on your toes to look around. So if it does get built, it could be quite a significant attraction. There are some similar projects around the country. There's one I know in Mississippi. There's one in San Diego that are somewhat comparable. There's the one that's up in Victoria in British Columbia. That's more than a railway. It has other kinds of miniature things as well. So that is moving forward. We did have a meeting with Mr. Hambling and the whole council and the rest of his team. I think it was last Monday, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and we got to just ask him whatever questions about what their plans are, their business model, which, by the way, it's a nonprofit, not a for-profit business. 501c3, I guess it is. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I have to tell you about it. But I'd be happy to take any questions that you have for me with regard to either of those topics, even though, especially with the staff, I can't really tell you much.
Okay, online, I see Commissioner Smith has a question.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to pay close attention, although this is a project that certainly of interest to my son, who plans to work there and will probably be the first employee. So, but I saw there was some opposition or some concern comments from the tribe. Could you summarize those and any steps that come as a result of that?
What I can tell you is what they have said publicly. My understanding is that they have objection to the location because it is close to a site that they consider to be sacred. And it's across the highway from that location. And also that the subject matter of trains is something that they can be a point of contention, given some of the history of westward expansion and the involvement of the railroad. So I do know that the city staff and the administration and Mr. Hambling are in consultation with the tribe to try to come to an understanding of what exactly the museum is and how Native American stories can be told and how to get their perspective involved in the project. I do know that they did go out to check the height of the building to make sure that you wouldn't be able to see it from the falls. And they believe that it would be below the tree line and kind of around the corner from one of the hills. And I think that's the main points that the tribe brought up, at least the ones I remember off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions online? Here in the room?
No, I just would like to say I'm kudos to the council for moving fast on this. I know Mr. Hamlin was talking about being open to Tacoma and North Bend, so it's great that the focus was brought here to Snoqualmie. It's in keeping with the city's history, so that's great. And if we can address the tribe's concerns, I think it's a win for everyone.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate all the input from the tribe whenever these projects come up. They have a very important voice in the community.
Very good.
Thanks.
Okay,
All right, and that's all I got.
thank you,
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson. At this point, I'd like to move that we approve the minutes from the June 20th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and now I'd like to put out a tweak to the July 17th, 2023 meeting minutes. If you look at the last page, it says the upcoming meeting is July 7th. Just please change that to August 7th. And then with that change, I move that we approve the July 17th, 2023 Planning Commission minutes so amended. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've approved those 2 minutes. Now we move into the next agenda item. You've got the ADU code updates. This is agenda item here.
Should be comp plan land use elements.
Yeah, so let's do that. Comp plan, land use element draft policies.
Yeah, because we've concluded with item number 3. We'll go to item number 4.
Yeah. What was in there? Okay,
Great. We have Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. We have our land use consultant, Matt Covert from LDC here to continue on with our goals and policies discussion. Matt has a presentation to walk you through the draft policies that you'll be reviewing tonight. Matt, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
yes,
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me, Chair and Community Development Director. This is the second of what will likely be 2, unless the commission decides they need to hear more information. This is the second of 2 planned discussions of draft policies related to the land use element. I've got all the draft policies on slides by category, much as I did last time. And it looks like Community Development Director Arteche is going to take some comments on the board, which is awesome. So I will go ahead and share. See if I can do that. Emily will see if I can do that portion of screen thing. It was such a cool trick last time. Do my best.
Yeah, do you remember how to do that with?
Yes, I believe so. You all see this? Okay. So just as a reminder, since it sounds like I don't recall if everyone here was here last time, and I know we have a new commissioner. The general approach to this has been that staff has taken a look at the existing policies and made some professional judgment about things that are refer to programs that no longer exist or use outdated language, or where there's policies that need to be revised or amended in some way because of changes to state law or countywide planning policies or other external forces. And then made some draft changes to try to improve clarity and kind of have fewer categories and move a lot of things that used to be in the policies to code where possible, and to reduce duplication of things like annexation and other related policies that exist in the countywide planning policies. We had that discussion last time. I have a couple minor changes to a couple of those policies based on some feedback that I'll get to in a second. That's been the general flow of this. And then we've taken a look at what staff has prepared and made additional comments related to the work that we did on the housing element compliance. And there's a lot of relationship between housing and land use, and we did some housing work for the city this past year, and so we can use what we developed to help improve consistency between land use and then what you're going to be seeing later in the housing element. Let's see. So there are a couple things I didn't see it in the web packet link that I clicked on, but I was able to dig up that last time one of you had a question about the interlocal agreement method for annexations that was created a couple of years ago. And I found a fact sheet for that. It was just from MRSC. If that is not in the printed packet for some reason, there were some blank pages at the end of my web link. So I just wanted to make sure that in case folks wanted to see that if it didn't make it in this one, we'll make it available later. Emily, I'm not sure if you are able to see if you have a paper packet in front of you.
Matt, we did provide that
Okay.
to the planning commissioners just through a separate email message, just for their information.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So you all can see that there's several different things on there. I mentioned in here that in case you've got your post-it notes handy, that it's just pages 9 through 11 that are relevant for what the question was about, which was the new-ish way by which cities and counties can agree to annexations. The second point is that some of the policies that we looked at last time, the draft policies that we came up with, we received some comments from the tribe, some good comments, and we were able to make a couple of minor changes to the set of policies that we reviewed last time. The first one, this is actually very related to the other major topic of conversation tonight. You see accessory dwelling units in there. So the original policy said, within the floodplain, allow for infill and redevelopment in residential zones featuring a range of housing options, including accessory dwelling units within walking distance of the historic downtown commercial core. The tribe had an issue with the little bit of fuzzy language on floodplain. They said, well, in the floodway, which is within the floodplain, we definitely shouldn't be encouraging this. So we just clarified that policy to make sure that we're talking about the area of the floodplain that is outside of the floodway. And then the second policy is related to acquisition of riverfront properties. There were some qualifiers on the subject riverfront properties related to high risk, chronic flooding, and they proposed to just say acquire riverfront properties within the floodway, which seemed like a sensible streamlining of that language. And then they added this clause to naturalize them in order to allow for incorporation into a resilient river corridor. I put that in the revised draft language here for you to take a look at, and just wanted to make you aware of that, see if anyone had any issues with that language. I think it speaks to what the goal is for acquisition of properties within the floodway and the floodway management work that the city does with partners. So does anyone have any questions about either of these two changes?
No.
Okay. So there's quite a few more categories of policies tonight than last time. Still, I think many fewer categories than in the current comp plan. Oops, let me get back to that. The categories are development patterns, specific land uses, regional planning, design, character and quality, and historic and cultural resources. So I'll go through all of those in order, and I'll just kind of go through the draft policies in each of those categories, and we'll read through them one by one, see if anybody has any questions or comments. If we need to, if I need to go to the, folks have questions about what the existing policy was, I can go to the spreadsheet that that staff and I put together on that. So obviously, if folks have questions, we can do that as we go. So the first one, let's see, first one in this category, development patterns. So some of these changes are, as I mentioned, there's some language changes. These are adapted from existing policies. In some cases, they are serve a very specific purpose, and the language serves a very specific purpose. So the first one is promote a range of uses that help create place and identity, reduce commuting expenses, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and encourage physical activity.
Okay.
Chime in if anybody has any questions. Encourage development patterns that feature housing, jobs, services, and transit stops in close proximity to each other. Consider appropriate land use designations and zoning districts for undeveloped land that implement the goals and policies of this plan. This is an interesting one. I'll just make a note here that this one is intended to help, and in the policy matrix that we helped the city put together, I noted that this is really intended to give the city the cover to kind of look carefully at because you have a mixed use zone that covers all of SR1 and SR2, and there's language in the current comp plan that that zone is intended to be, those are intended to be sort of converted to existing zones within the city. There's some question about, I think, about whether or not that's necessary. And so this kind of gives the city the ability to look at that mixed use zone and say, do we want to keep it? Do we want to change stuff over as was originally intended? What about the potential annexation area? There's some future land use categories that don't necessarily line up with the zones that implement those categories. So this really gives the city direction to think carefully about the match between land use designation and zoning district, and especially in the light of undeveloped land or redevelopable land, and just encourages the city to make sure that those line up as to intention and goals of the plan. Any questions about that one? Okay, the next one, commercial nodes, including historic downtown Snoqualmie, Better Way Southeast, Mill Street, and Center Boulevard, should feature commercial, civic, cultural, residential, and recreational uses within walking distance of one another.
Quick question.
Yes.
I understand commercial, residential, and recreation pretty well. Could you define civic and cultural? And I'm thinking like of Better Way. And what is a civic use that's or a cultural use?
Library, museum are the ones that come to mind.
Well, there's a library on Center, but I don't. Was that civic or cultural? What civic? Yeah.
You could argue that it could be either. You know, if there was a some sort of tribe cultural resource center storefront, that would obviously fall under cultural. I'm not sure if that's planned or not. I'm just, you know, thinking of things that could fall into that category.
So you're saying of these areas, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, that each of these 4 major areas in Snoqualmie should have each of these: commercial, civic, cultural, residential, recreational.
Not necessarily all. Yeah, we're not saying that you know, that's awfully prescriptive, that there should be an exact mix of uses in these commercial nodes. Just that these nodes are particularly good locations for having a wide range of uses in different categories within walking distance of each other, particularly commercial, and because that's kind of the whole point.
Should rather than may. I mean, should tells me that you got to have all that stuff.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I think we could improve that language a little bit.
You could also say or, like commercial, civil, cultural, residential, or recreational uses.
Yeah, I think
Could be a mix.
the example I think of is when we were going through the approval process for the hotel and adjacent office at the Parkway and Center. Initial plans had kind of that drive-through coming up near that area, and we kind of pursued the option of having more of like a civic open space where you've got like a seating area and that sort of thing versus so that I think kind of that was one thought process that we had going through this last time around for incorporating those sorts of spaces that encourage gathering and more pedestrian and less cars.
Right. Right. No, what I'm after is, are those 4 areas of Snoqualmie okay, or do we need to add things to accommodate this of each of the areas that may be missing a cultural thing or a civic thing? Yes.
We may want to just consider removing the commercial node descriptions, and then, you know, that way it wouldn't wouldn't force each one of those to have each one of those
Yeah, the word
geographic
should
areas.
kind of popped out at me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could we just say commercial nodes? Or maybe encourage commercial nodes to feature.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, because we'll have commercial, residential, and recreational. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I like that change.
By the way, I was always told in my brief history of the city to be very, very in tune to the word should. So versus may. So there it is, you know. But encourage us, just be careful with the should. Okay.
I just wanted,
Very good point.
Chair, can I make one more?
Please.
comment? Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. On bullet number 3, I'm just wondering if that might, if the word undeveloped land might read better, just saying consider appropriate land use designations and zoning districts that implement the goals and policies of this plan. Do we need undeveloped?
Well, undeveloped calls to mind the one area of the UGA that we could annex if we wanted to. Right?
Mhm.
I mean, if you take that out, then it almost seems like we're just going to look at what we've got and perhaps rezone it or whatnot. So I like the fact that, at least for me, it calls to mind, again, what we used to call Snoqualmie Hills West. I don't know what we call it now.
Yeah, that was top of mind for us coming up with this, because that's other than a couple of parcels in the mixed use zone that are kind of in varying degrees of early feasibility, as far as I understand it. That's really all she wrote that's remaining in the city. So that's without saying appropriate land use designations and zoning districts for the PAA, because if those were to get annexed, then this would kind of become an out of date, kind of a dead end policy. Just kind of makes it vague enough to where it could apply to existing SR1 or SR2. There's those couple of parcels left, or the PAA, or anything else that might happen with UGAs in the future.
Why don't we just change 4 to the word including? Consider appropriate land use designation zoning districts, including undeveloped land, that implement the goals and policies of this plan. Then you're kind of all inclusive.
That may work. Emily, did you catch that?
Does it make sense? Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments on this page?
Mhm.
No.
Okay.
Three more on the development patterns one. Support the transformation of underutilized lands into viable uses that support the needs of the community. Again, you don't have many of those, but if a use were to degrade over time and lose value and become redevelopable, that would apply.
Wait a minute. I mean, man, you're using words up here that seem vague, and maybe it's just me. Underutilized. I mean, you can call it the mill site is underutilized compared to what it used to be, right?
Underutilized has a specific meaning in the kind of buildable lands, land capacity, land use element world. It refers to, for generally speaking, it's related to the improvement to land value ratio, and the current use and the highest and best use of the zone or of the property.
Okay, well, I won't rat hole this, but could we have a definition of that next meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Ensure that land regulations promote a healthy and safe built environment. Promote appropriate infill redevelopment that maintains or enhances neighborhood character. Okay, specific land uses. So this is policies related to one or more specific uses. So not the kind of the overall pattern, but related to housing, related to retail, related to essential public facilities, things of that nature. So first one, allow and encourage a range of housing types and price ranges that are affordable to all economic segments of the city and make it possible for people to live and work in Snoqualmie.
I mean, I think the council took our housing, what King County requested of us, and made a response that accounts for that. mean, if you put that in context, then it works. If you take it just as a face value, yeah, we would struggle with that. Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and this one is not necessarily related. I mean, it's related in a roundabout way, but the capacity issue, I think was actually covered under one of the policies in the first meeting, related to like UGAs and UGA development policies. This one is specifically, this is one of those ones that I mentioned. There's we're trying to build some links to the housing element, and this doesn't specifically relate to that, capacity issue or the allocations by income bracket issue, but the all economic segments of the city language is lifted from the requirements for the housing element, and the range of types and price ranges is also adapted from that as well. So this one kind of stands alone from the capacity issue as far as like, the what the county says you have to provide. But it does address that. It used to be you just have to plan for a range of incomes. Now you have to provide, you have to plan for and accommodate housing that is affordable to all economic segments of the community. That's like language directly from the GMA. So this is just kind of adapting that for the city's needs.
Okay. Community Director, Development Director Arteche, you wanted to add?
No more. He explained it.
Right.
Allow for sufficient service, hospitality, and office uses in retail-focused areas.
Okay.
Promote neighborhood-scale retail and service businesses within mixed-use developments.
Okay.
Allow institutional uses such as museums, interpretive centers, and community recreation centers as appropriate for designated parks and open space areas.
I think we covered that. Okay.
Ensure the impacts to surrounding areas from essential public facilities are appropriately mitigated. There's a lot of essential public facilities are I don't know if folks have questions about the definition of that, but that's also a state law thing, and there's a lot of work that the county and the cities do as part of the countywide planning policies around the siting and criteria for essential public facilities. And so there's not a whole lot to add in your city's plan, other than that cities have to, to work to make sure that impacts are mitigated, because you kind of have to allow them. There's limitations on that within the floodway, for example, but it's really all about just kind of preventing and mitigating impacts at the city level. Allow power generation facilities, sewage and water treatment plants, other public or private utilities, parks and open space uses, and other accessory commercial uses in areas designated utility park.
Okay.
Provide sufficient areas with appropriate zoning to provide the full continuum of goods and services needed to serve the local population.
It's kind of a grandfather clause, but okay.
Yes, agreed. Now these three policies are related to requirements from the Puget Sound Regional Council, and the updates to that plan largely centered around things like equity and displacement risk, and climate change. And there were a couple changes to tribal relationships as a result of changes to state law that kind of trickled down through PSRC. So the first one of these is kind of around inclusivity. Inclusive community planning is language from PSRC. I kind of cobbled together this definition based on other language that they offered. So support inclusive community planning that identifies the needs of diverse communities, protects cultural resources, and embraces cohesion in the face of change. Evaluate areas for potential residential and commercial displacement and use a range of strategies to mitigate displacement impacts.
What would be an example causing that?
Well, so when PSRC and the county and the state are talking about displacement, they're usually talking about market displacement, which is when, for example, an old kind of somewhat, potentially somewhat rundown, naturally occurring affordable housing, like an old triplex or something, gets torn down and three relatively luxurious townhomes get built. So that's, people who can afford to live in a rundown old triplex getting displaced by people who can afford to buy a $950,000 townhome. That's like what they would consider residential displacement. Commercial displacement is, in many cases, is referring to kind of a potentially like relatively low cost, low rent commercial facility that's being used by a local business. But the structure is kind of, less than ideal, and it kind of, its location maybe in a downtown or a commercial node makes it really attractive to being bought and replaced with a mixed use project or something that might not have room for that local business. So that's what displacement means for PSRC. Snoqualmie does not have a lot of displacement risk. What you do have, and I noted this in the work that we did on housing, is you have flooding risk. And so some of the things that we did in that plan referred to things that you could do to mitigate displacement impacts from flood risk. And you already do some of that, and that was covered in some of that floodplain policy that we talked about last time. But this is a 20-year plan, and so when we're talking about, is there displacement risk now in the sense that you'd understand it in a community like, like Renton or Tukwila or something? Probably not, at least not nearly to the same degree, but it is a 20-year plan. And so this is saying that, there may be risks that arise for displacement as is commonly understood. And there are a lot of strategies and tools out there that you can use to mitigate those impacts, like rights of first refusal on housing displacement, and repair programs for commercial properties and residential properties too, for that matter, to keep them viable for longer for the current residents. So things like that. Kind of a long answer, but did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Lastly, as applicable, limit incompatible uses adjacent to tribal reservation lands. As applicable is doing a lot of work there. That could mean a lot of things, but we felt it was appropriate to keep it general.
And just to be clear, for Snoqualmie, the reservation lands is the land around the casino.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just because it's owned by the tribe does not mean that it's reservation lands, as far as I understand it.
Okay.
So these are there's design, character, and quality, and historic and cultural resources are two sections in the existing policies that we actually got a couple comments from King County on, and so that was helpful. And so we went through the same exercise as the other sections once we got those couple of bits of feedback from the county, and staff and I went through and sort of have these draft policies that, in some cases come from that, and in other cases are kind of split up to improve clarity. So first, strive to maintain existing view corridors, including the Snoqualmie River and other natural features, while minimizing sensitive areas impacts.
Okay.
Protect the scenic nature of the I-90 corridor and Upper Snoqualmie Valley through partnerships like the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust. Maintain the city's federally recognized historic preservation program for the downtown and Meadowbrook commercial districts, and ensure site and building changes are consistent with historic character through appropriate design standards and other regulations.
How much in the city is federally recognized?
Community Development Director Arteche may have a more specific answer for you than I would.
Actually, I would, Jonathan Kessler,
Thank you.
planner. We have National Register districts, so there's the one downtown, and I believe Meadowbrook too is a National Register district.
I mean, all of historic downtown is on the National Register. Is that right?
Well, it's a district. I wish we had the map, but we don't have it handy, but most of downtowns. A federal district, National Register district is honorific. So it recognizes like historic resources, but of course it's the local level protections that require things like design review. So we do have that district as well in downtown. I would note on point 4 that we need to mention most of the lifting is done by the King County. So we would want to insert language talking about Snoqualmie Historic Design Review Board, but also in partnership with King County Historic Reservation. Because we have the interlocal agreement with them for that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Community Development Director Arteche, we talked about this a little bit, and that language on Snoqualmie Landmarks and Heritage Commission is from the current comp plan, but we were on the fence about whether we should just go ahead and replace with the King County Landmarks information or keep it as is. So sounds like if there's an interlocal in place with the Landmarks Commission for the county, that should be reflected here. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, that's correct. I can provide you the language. Be happy to.
And if it's worth it, I could bring up Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. I could bring up the boundaries for the historic.
You guys want to say it again? But that is, the entire historic district is on the National Register?
Well,
No,
it's there's a national registered district and then there's a local district. Those boundaries do vary a little bit because it's different criteria, but generally most all of downtown is on the national register district.
Because I'm hearing two different things. Because it's not a big part. I mean, the historic district isn't that big.
Right, it's
So-
small.
If the national district is different from that, I'd kind of like to know, because
We have really handy map, but
yeah, you may have to stop sharing.
You want me to, I was gonna say, do you want me to just stop and then you can go for it?
I think you have to zoom in more to get it to.
Jonathan, would you like to walk through the downtown landmark in Meadowbrook?
Yes, so the Meadowbrook is over there on the far right side. So that's a National Register district. And then the downtown is in the purple. So it's a pretty large area. Like you said, pretty much all of downtown. And then some additional protections provided by local landmarking, which is part of, what goes to the county with the inner local agreement that provides requirements like design review and things like that.
So which circle is the purple or the yellow that's part of the National Historic Register?
The purple,
The purple. Okay, so it's
which
the
is quite a
historic
bit
district.
larger. Yes.
Yeah, the historic district and Meadowbrook are all part of the National Historic Register.
Yes. Those two.
Basically, 4 blocks in Meadowbrook. Those old buildings are part of, that's interesting. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and if Emily, if you're still at the board or if you're taking notes elsewhere, to make sure that we address that language on point 4, support historic design review through the Snoqualmie Historic Design Review Board and or in partnership with the King County Landmarks Commission, I believe it is.
Yeah, the King County Landmarks and Heritage.
Landmarks and Heritage Commission. Lastly, consider appropriate lighting standards that minimize light pollution without impacts to public safety. Okay, one more section here. We're doing great. So this is historic and cultural resources. Work individually and cooperatively, meaning as the city and in cooperation with other entities, to identify and evaluate important aspects of historical and cultural heritage and adopt appropriate regulations or other strategies to protect those resources.
Okay.
Support the preservation of Snoqualmie Valley history, facilities, and culture by working with and supporting the efforts of heritage organizations, agencies, and tribes.
You've got plural tribes there?
Yes, I believe there is a specific reason for that because part of the watershed of the Snoqualmie Valley is what tribe was it? Was it the Puyallup, Emily?
Muckleshoot.
Was it-
Muckleshoot.
Because they used to own a lot of land here, yeah.
Mhm. Consider local heritage when naming city streets and facilities. Maintain an interlocal agreement with King County for historic preservation assistance and inventory, as well as landmark designation purposes.
All right,
So
hold
that refers to that interlocal, right, Jonathan? Okay.
Do we have a current inventory?
We do. The King County has good resources, and also the state through their Wizard. You can actually go online and look at this really detailed list of different types of historic resources around the state, but specifically our area as well.
Yeah, very specifically within the national historically recognized area downtown. Because I mean, there's an old 1930s garage. Everybody's just waiting for it to fall over, right? But I mean, what of that is there a list of these buildings? Are part of the landmark thing within it, or is it just the district?
There's, well, it lists the district, like if you check, like with the state, DAP, so it's Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation with the state you're probably familiar with. They have a online portal called Wizard, and you can go and check different resources, and they have a lot of detail in their database, not just of districts overall, but listings of what's in the districts. Now, when you are awarded like a national registered district is established, then there's a really detailed list that's submitted when it's approved. Or not approved, but in this case approved, that lists of contributing and non-contributing buildings throughout the entire district. So
Like the train station in Woodman are pretty cleanly contributing, but
correct.
Is the Bindlestick? I don't know. I'd be curious. Yeah.
It definitely would be worth, I've not seen the nomination, for when it was submitted, but I definitely would want to see that and see what is and isn't, but it clearly lays it out.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Okay.
Two more. Work with property owners and developers to implement adaptive reuse strategies that preserve the character and viability of the city's historic sites, buildings, districts, landscape features, murals, and neighborhoods.
Okay.
Pursue grants and technical assistance as available to assist property owners with the preservation and rehabilitation of storefronts and buildings in the historic districts to preserve and restore their historic appearance and economic viability.
Okay, question to staff. Outside of the train museum, see grants for train museum, yeah, outside of the train museum, for anything downtown? For restoration, everything downtown?
Not that I know of, not that it wouldn't be eligible, Mr. Chairman, but certainly that, if it meets the criteria, then they can be eligible for grants.
Okay. Yeah, we could connect the dots to those two things. Yeah.
It also doesn't foreclose that there may be like Department of Commerce assistance or something that they might have a grant program related to this. So gives you direction to pursue something like that were it to come up. That is all that I have for you. Sounds like we got some good notes, and Jonathan, I'm glad you were here. Very fortuitous that you were here to present on an unrelated topic, so thank you. And Community Development Director Arteche, we will reconvene and get those notes incorporated into the revised policies.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. Have a great evening.
Great presentation, Matt. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Good night.
And Community Development Director Arteche, thank you for taking such copious notes. So we didn't miss anything. Appreciate it. Okay, the next agenda item is our items of planning commissioner interest. And so I poll and find out if there's some specific items that each commissioner wants. I'll start in here and then go online. Commissioner Crone. Vice Chair,
You have nothing for me. So.
Vice Chair Tessman,
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Aliff.
Nothing this week. Thank you.
Okay, online, Commissioner Kilcup. Any items of interest you want to bring up?
No, sorry, my
Okay.
mute button. No, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Smith.
Not at this time. No, thank you.
Okay, I just want to bring up a couple questions since we've got the Boeing Classic starting. And one of the guys there didn't want to let me walk to my house, which is kind of funny, but nonetheless, I had to go around a retention pond, but nonetheless, I asked the question a couple of times, is do we fill the hotel when the Boeing Classic's in town? I'm real curious if we do that. And I know that it's just a verbal thing, but I just remember when we were going to build it and all the hand-wringing of that, we thought we would really benefit by everybody being in that hotel and checking out the city. So I'm curious if we're doing that.
I have Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. Thank you for asking that question. I have wondered the same thing. I have been checking in with Nicole Wiebe, our community liaison, and she has indicated through her interactions with the hotel that they are very busy, they're very full, and have very few vacancies. So
It's good to know.
yeah, they are doing quite well.
Good. Good. And not really complaint, just an observation. We have no, I'm glad WashDOT's doing this surfacing, but to do it this week is a little challenging.
Correct. And I've heard that we are going to take a lighter resurfacing approach if we can to facilitate traffic during the Boeing Classic.
Okay. Or they're going to start paving tomorrow, but okay. Anyway, no, it's amusing. It's amusing what's going on, but no, good. And then I'd asked a few times, and this is more out of curiosity, any new owner for the Woodman?
We do not have any information about that.
Okay. All right. All right. Any other items people thought of later? No? Oh, yes. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that Stone Quarry Road has also been repaved. I'm pretty sure that project is all done. That's the one that goes right by the Northwest Railway Museum. So that was just pothole central, and I know they're very happy to finally have that road done, and I'm sure that everyone visiting the museum is as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they do a good job when they do it. Yeah. Okay, so nothing else. Next agenda item is future agenda list.
Yeah, Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. I'm not going to bring up the future agenda list as I've looked at the packet material and it appears that the wrong version is
Okay.
included in there. It looks like it's a 2022 version, and my apologies. We've had a few minor,
Well, no worries. We can talk a little bit.
yeah,
We're going to discuss the ADU with what the staff has come up with relation to a parking spot and what we can do under the auspices of the Washington state law, et cetera. We're also going to be, and we'll close that and decide if we can make a recommendation at that point. And then we're also going to have more land use discussion. And if somebody has a permit or something like that to consider, obviously that,
Yeah.
that needs to be considered. Obviously that can be considered.
yeah. So just along those notes, we'll update the future agenda list so you can see in your packet at the subsequent meeting that we will be bringing forward in short order the economic development element from the EDC,
Okay,
as well as the EDU requirements and a wrap up of the land use element. And then you should be expected to promptly start the housing element.
Okay,
And again, the housing element, I would expect that it would be a lighter lift for you because you've gone through the housing needs analysis, the individual one, the valley-wide one, the housing strategy plan, the middle housing, and now the housing element. So a lot of the heavy lifting for this has been kind of curtailed under those previous studies. So hopefully it'll be a good element to do, but not a heavy weighted one for you to get through.
good, okay. All right. Anything else to discuss? From you, Community Director? Arteche, anything else from you?
No, thank you.
Okay, anything else? At this point, I'll move that we adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It is adjourned at 8:21 PM, August 7th, 2023. Thank you, everybody.
You.
Thank you.